Welcome back to the War Room, powered by Prep Baseball and Draft HQ. I am Shooter Hunt here with the great DJ Svihlik and also the great Dr. David Seifert. Sorry if my head is a mess right now. We have moved quickly from 24 to 25. We're eyeing 26s at the future games. There's so much action coming to the Prep Baseball landscape, but we really wanted to hop on here to recap the draft. It was an awesome 3 days. I know you guys, we were locked in those first two. We had those great meetings at 30,000 feet. I was following the entire flight on day 3, checking out guys who were going, some really interesting high school names who I know some big programs are waiting to hear what happens with. But welcome back, guys. What did you think of the draft? Let's start from there. Just some initial, maybe one-word responses to the draft. DJ, you're up first.
Oh, gosh, I'm really on the hot seat. One word, top heavy.
Okay.
That's a hyphenated word. You know how I feel about hyphenated players? Seif, you know how I feel about hyphenated players? I'm going with a hyphenated word. Is that hyphenated?
That is hyphenated, but I'll still give it one word. That's pretty impressive because I'm sitting here trying to think of one word for myself. You know, I can't limit it to just one word, but man, I want to just say fun. And for the reason it was talked about, like, you know, some people had choice words for it, but I thought it was, you know, a stronger draft. It certainly wasn't the best ever draft, but like there were a lot of talented guys picked. Some maybe a little bit early and some maybe a little bit later than we thought. But all in all, I was in tune for all 20 rounds. I listened to all 20 rounds, and obviously you pay more attention to the top, you know, the first day and a half. But man, it was just a really fun draft for me.
And you saying fun there, and that just shows your scouting chops and that you just are a scout through and through. Because what I thought was so fun about this, and I have it in our notes here, it was not just a base level thing where, hey, here are the famous names. We're just picking at these guys. This is easy scouting. We don't really need a department. Oh, wow, we should get rid of this was a huge year for area guys. You had to buckle down and check in on some guys and really know your area because there was a lot of talent and value to be had. Even though the pundits wanted to say this is not a strong draft, there will be big leaguers coming out of this. There will be stars who come out of this. But I think they may stretch out throughout, right? A lot of the dollars were stretched from the first round all the way. I was seeing guys in the 5th, 6th round who are going to eventually get some money here before the deadline. But I thought it was a big year for area guys. Well, how did you guys feel about that after now that the dust is settled on 20 rounds?
I mean, it was a fun year for me because I think I saw 87 of our top 100, you know what I mean? And I saw guys taken in the second round who I think are bona fide big leaguers, like Jonathan Santucci. I know there were some injury concerns there or whatever, and that's probably why he fell. But I mean, he had Dylan Dreiling, another one of my favorite bats, Billy Amick from Tennessee, both those guys from Tennessee. Those are both second rounders taken around like the 65th pick, somewhere in there. You know, Ryan Johnson, who's one of my favorite pitchers I saw all year. He went about 10 picks later than that. Luke Holman from LSU, one of the best pitchers in college. He went mid to late second round. So for me, it was just like guy after guy that I had seen that I'd really liked, but they were second rounders, third rounders. So as far as the area scout goes, you know, the area scout really, he gets involved throughout the process. You know, he's the one that first identifies and recommends for this crosser to be seen or the scouting director to be seen, you know, from there. But I mean, it was a really easy draft to make a really strong mark as an area guy with just, you know, DJ said top heavy. It was top heavy, but the depth of let's say, like, if you want to put a 40 or 45 marginal prospects, you know, guys that could jump up and somehow become an average big leaguer just because you can't always project that correctly, or a lot of times you don't. But as an area scout, man, you could really go deep on your list of guys you really like because it was such a deep draft with kind of like the mid marginal guy. I'm not trying to set anybody down by saying that. That's just exactly what it was.
Yeah, you know, I maybe because it felt a little homogenous. Maybe it was hard to separate players. I hear some of those players that you talk about, Seif, that we've talked about, Shooter. And maybe, you know, when it's hard to separate players and the players not making it easy on you, maybe then it feels like it's not as strong a draft. But make no mistake, it's not like any draft. You wake up and go, you're in the third round. And of the 30 players that get taken in the third round, 25 of them are everyday players. That never happens.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at all these players, and it did look a little bit homogenous, I say top heavy because the play, maybe it was in the seat or the lens that I was looking through in this year specifically, but I saw those players in the top 2 to 3 rounds, and we talked about them so much that I really enjoyed that. It was harder for me to get engaged a little bit deeper down the board because those are the players where you have to be in it every single day to know them. I know Seif, I know you are. Shooter, I know you are. So you were a little bit more familiar with those names. I saw a lot of those top 2, and I was excited about a lot of those guys, regardless of the order that they went in. You mentioned like a Santucci or a Dreiling or an Amick. There's just a lot of really good players down the board to get excited about. So
let's talk about it. And I just came back from an event around a bunch of scouts, asking them about their draft, how they're feeling. And we always talk about how these guys had a great draft. And when you can actually say how good it was, how long that takes. We've talked about it a little bit. And then even in the moment of we're going through, there were some guys that were huge surprises to us, whether it's the first round, second, third, where they went. But those organizations all have a reason for that, right? They walk away saying, this is the guy we wanted. Here's what we have. Versus some other teams are saying, what were they doing? Those guys are morons. It is where we are in neutral territory, right? We're just sitting where we are. All of our information's public. We put it out there. And then to hear the teams talk about, hey, this is what we liked about this guy. This was a steal. And then to go to somebody else and to say, those guys are morons. They had no idea. What were they thinking there? And what I'm getting at is, how long will that take to come to fruition? How long can you kind of iron down, like, these guys had a great draft. What are you thinking in the immediacy? Because I know there were a handful of teams for me where it's like, these guys did a good job. They had a plan. They attacked it. They did some really good things. I like where they took it. Whether it works out or not, hey, we'll see. But what are your thoughts on that, DJ, especially you, because you've put together these, these wonderful draft classes in the past who go out, and then you're holding your breath a little bit, I would think, as a director. Please go out and do well right away and then continue to do that.
So we're in a results business. So at the end of the day, the owner wants to see results. So ultimately, that's how you're going to get judged. But somewhere along that pathway, you still have to be collecting value. You still have to feel the value of the player has to be propped up either superficially. I know that sounds strange, but somehow that value in that player, people have to continue to be excited about him. Whether you took him in the second round, the third round, the 8th round, whatever it might be. And there's a lot of places along the way in check marks where you can see that. So when players start to go out and they perform very well, you continue with that enthusiasm from the day you signed him. And when they don't do well, you get a pit in your stomach. When they start to make lists, oh, he's a top 10 prospect in an organization. When he graduates onto the MLB, and we talked to Jim Callis about this, moving from the draft to the MLB top 100 list. Certainly teams, whether you're Brian Barber and the Rays and the who else down there? Houston, picking Walker Janik. Whether you're picking low in the first round or you're picking high, you're certainly hoping that your first round pick makes it onto that list because it's somewhat it validates what you just did, because we won't know for probably 3 to 5 years what these outcomes are going to look like. And sometimes even longer than that. Guys are still developing in the major leagues. When they get there, some organizations move players a lot faster, so their statistics don't look as good sometimes. They're being valued for different reasons and pushed through a system. So to answer your question, I think once the players go out, and specifically the position players, once they go out and they start to collect 600, 700, 800 plate appearances, it's at that point where you can look back and you can say, hey, we were trying to get a power bat. Is he producing some power? We were trying to get a hitter. Is he OPSing at a high rate because his on-base percentage and his slug, or his batting average and his slug come together? So I do think that after a couple of years, you should be able to start to reassess and look back. I know we did all the time. We did all the time, tried to look back and see quickly, over the first couple of years. And I'll end it with this. When the pro scouting reports start to come in on the players, did you get the tools right? When you said it was a 60 heater, was it a 60 heater? When you said it was a 60 runner, was it a 60 runner? Those are other check marks that you can utilize to help understand how you did.
Hey, I'm gonna stay with you for a second here, TJ, just because this just popped in my head. Having you were there as a scouting director, would you look at any of the prospect rankings? Is that something that you considered? Because ironically, I saw one pop up from the Marlins.
Mhm.
I don't know, it was a random fan site, but what was noticeable to me was in their ranking tiered of it, Carter Johnson was ahead of PJ Morlando. Right? They
Mhm.
took both of them. Morlando went first
Yeah.
and then Carter Johnson. But to see him ahead on that list, would that be something that you're looking at like, wait, why is this? Or is it like, hey, we got both of them? What, who
Yeah,
cares?
everybody has a voice. That's the one
Yeah.
thing about today's day and age, and it's sometimes it's irritating. Everybody has a voice. Even people that aren't well informed have a voice. Nobody knows why PJ Morlando, to use your example, was selected first. Of
Mhm.
course, Peter Bendix and the new scouting director, of course, they're going to come in and say he was the best guy on our board. What they're not going to tell you is who they wanted to select. Or they're not going to tell you this. Did we save the money so that we can move the money to Carter Johnson? So you take those things with a grain of salt, and you acknowledge them, but you have to understand where they're coming from, and you hope that the owners of the teams and the people up above you understand who's putting rankings together and where they can, which rankings they should be
You
listening
listen to the
to.
right voices. Saif, let me shift over
Yeah.
to you because we did do a bunch of great articles. Check out prepbaseball.com. Dr. Seif did an awesome job putting those together. I was traveling all over and getting ready for some trips. Thank you for that, Seif. Some of those winners, we talked about some day one stuff, day two. Now you look at the full draft. Who were some teams, players, what were picks that you enjoyed? What were some things that you took away? Like, hey, these guys did a nice job.
For me, as far as teams, I mean, I really like, and I side with the college. I've see some high school, not nearly as much as yourself, obviously, but I really like what Colorado did. They got Condon third overall, then they got a steal with Brody Breck, and then they got Jared Thomas, just a few picks after Breck. I also like what the Angels did. They got three quick to the big league guys, and Christian Moore, Chris Cortez, a right-handed pitcher from Texas A&M, and Ryan Johnson. Obviously, I just mentioned his name before from DBU, another big arm, all quick to the big leagues, kind of like that's their niche here lately. But as far as me, if you know me too, I like the diversified portfolio.
Oh, yeah.
So I also like what the Twins did with Culpepper, DeBarge, one of my favorites, Amick, one of my favorites, and then more about the prep lefty Dasan Hill, but he sounds like a really talented kid himself.
Mm-hmm.
I really also like what the Reds did. I thought the Reds, they got Chase Burns,
Mhm.
huge upside with Chase Burns, big upside with the Nebraska prep Tyson Lewis. And then they went and got Luke Holman in the second round from LSU, whose presentability and stuff probably exceeded anybody else on the board, any college pitcher, college right-handers for certain. So I really like the balance those two clubs brought.
Saif, I'm gonna stop you there because I'm gonna get more in depth here because I like you and I think DJ the same way. Thought the Rockies did a really nice job. The depth of it, the diversification, but going through, I love what they did with the types of arms they got. Right, it's hard to pitch in Colorado. Newsflash. That I don't think we're reinventing anything there. Brody Breck, if you hit on that guy, how much value is there? Like stuff-wise, the whole package, that guy's huge stuff. LeBaron Johnson, a year ago, what were we saying about that guy? He was lights out.
Yeah.
So now to tie in DJ's reclamation project, that guy's awesome. Luke Jewett, another one from UCLA, kind of had an up and down career at UCLA, went through some injuries. He was a mega name out of high school. Southern California kid, has a chance to be really good. Justin Lower, LSU left-hander, southpaw, who did not have a great season. Had a chance to be a weekend guy at Xavier, goes to LSU, up and down. But another reclamation project with regards to arms. Then you throw in all the big-time bats that they pulled in. Guy like Cole Messina, who's a winner, who can really hit. I agree with you. I thought the Rockies did a really nice job. And the teams at the bottom level are going to be like, those guys had tons of money. They better have done a nice job, but it's easier said than done, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you have the money, you still have to spend it wisely, spend it correctly. Right. And they did a super good job. And I know you probably like what the Pirates did, go one ball. For me, what the Pirates did, that's too risky for my blood with all of your first 3 picks going high school. But I mean, those players and you know the individual risk. But no, those are some of the top 5-6 team drafts that come to mind. As far as players who I thought did well, the 2 that stick out are Ben Hess with the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
I had him more of a mid-second round, early second round type guy. Big arm, great body, good breaking ball, riding fastball. Not the best junior season statistically, but the stuff certainly there. The metrics certainly there. The Yankees know what they're doing, obviously. And the other one was Emilian Petre from Kentucky, second baseman from Kentucky. If you go watch him play, you're going to see a plus runner, a plus defender, a plus bat to ball guy, just 30 raw power. But I guess there were some underlying metrics, that my eyes don't see, other eyes don't see until you really analyze the data. And they popped him in the second round, probably 2 rounds ahead of where we had him. So, good for him. So those were 2 of the individuals I thought really benefited on draft day from, where maybe I individually saw both those guys in person, this past spring.
And DJ, go ahead, DJ.
Understanding the lens that these scouting directors or vice presidents are looking through and the expectations that are put on them by their ownership groups. What's the situation with their big league team? That's really important to understand when they make some of these picks, whether you're the Reds, which I agree with you, Seif. I didn't catch that one right away. After Burns, it took me a minute to look back through these drafts. I agree with you. I like what the Reds did. That was pretty good. And of course, I like the Rockies as well. And you look right down the Rockies with all of these college players wondering, are they trying to move them quicker to the major leagues? Condon falls in their lap, but then they go and they don't get Burns. Who knows? Maybe they wanted him. Who knows? Then they go and get Brecht. That was the first thing. So the perspective and the lens that each of those guys are looking through. But number 2, you still, even with a big pool, you have to pick the right player.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pick the right player, no matter whether you're spending $3 million in the comp round or the second round, wherever you're spending your money, you still have to pick the right player. I shared that story of standing at Southern Miss. And a longtime scouting director said, this isn't about evaluation. And I'll go back to the Rockies. Everybody liked Jared Thomas. And everybody liked, give me another one. Who's another good? Everybody liked Dreiling. A lot of teams like that stuff. And we're going to look back a few years from now, and we're going to see which one of those was the right pick. And the Rockies have a history of making the right pick in this area. So making the right pick is very, very important. Go ahead, Shooter.
Let me ask you this. I'll put both of you guys a little bit on the hot seat, this or that. Rockies and Guardians had similar slot or similar draft pools. Did you feel like one outpaced the other? Because I'm looking through and at the Guards, what they did here, like obviously a nice draft. They're stretching the money and actually pulled up some of the guys that they've signed here. I really like what the Rockies did. And I probably would say, hey, base level, because in 5 years we'll look back on this and be able to, but in the moment, this is the feeling they have. Rockies outpace the Guardians for me.
All right. I'm jumping in here right now and I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay. Do it.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm disagreeing with you just to say that. But what I find interesting here is look at what Cleveland did. I don't know some of these players, but I look at their draft. Of course, they're going to take Bazan or whoever the monster is. What were we hearing on TV? The aircraft carrier. They're going to take one of these guys up top. So they take Bazana, whatever. But look what they did after that. They leaned into what they're good at. They went plowing right into all their pitching. So they knew they needed, and they haven't been great with bats. So they weren't going to mess around with, I know we were teasing out Burns a little bit and send them up to the big leagues. They weren't messing with that. They took what they really, really needed and was a hole in their organization. And then they went into some stuff that was really, really good. Some pitching, which I just find really interesting. They've done really well with this stuff over the years. And then conversely, I look back at the Rockies and they did, not conversely, I shouldn't say that. And they did what they did really well. So when I say I disagree with you, what I liked about both, I couldn't choose because these guys leaned right into what they're both really, really good at. And it's hard for me to disagree with that when Cleveland does that. Because at the end, they got to produce major league players. So
yeah, this is who we are. Going back to run down with the Reds, just because this will be stuff that we can look back on, right? This is how we felt. Rapid reaction, right? This is where we are. Chase Burns, awesome pick, sets the record, goes beyond Skeens, which is saying a lot there. Tyson Lewis, huge upside, right? The athleticism, Reds have done well with that. To get Luke Holman where they got him, That was a great value pick to get a guy who many thought could have had a chance. I mean, shoot, if you flip Ben Hess with Luke Holman, are you like open your eyes like, oh my God, the Yankees just did that? Not too much. Sirota had a chance to be a first rounder going the season. Didn't have the big season, but huge reclamation project upside.
There it is.
Peyton Stovall along the same lines. That guy turned down a ton of money out of high school, left-handed bat. Tristan Smith, big left-handed arm. If the Reds think they can capture the value that his arm strength and arm talent provides, now you've gotten another steal in the 5th round. Miles Smith hit over 400 in the Big West, bat the ball guy. Luke Hayden can collect whiffs. It just kind of went down. They stretched out. I thought, just like you, Seif, that the Reds did a really nice job there. DJ, let me ask you about the Ben Hess pick, right? Because in the hot seat, you're sitting there, whether you're the Yankees, the A's, whoever it may be, versus the three of us sitting here. Hey, we've got both headlines set to go, right? For the surprise pick. If it clicks, wow, they got the metrics right. They did a great job. They saw that he had 100 strikeouts in 60 innings. He's in the SEC. Mm-hmm. He's got dominant stuff. He's got a physical frame, all the good stuff. And then the other side, you just sit there and you go, if it doesn't work out, we'll just come and slam him. And it's not fair, but you kind of have to have the mental fortitude and strength to be like, this is our guy. We're walking in there. We're taking him, and he's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say this for the last time because we talked about it and you just used the word again. I think you rolled your eyes, or somebody rolled their eyes when you heard me talking about this reclamation project. So I'm going to stand here and just throw it out here because you said it. And I think you're seeing it right there with the Reds. I wanted to point it out. I personally really, really like it. Players with tons of talent that were held in high regard. Something went haywire. Could have been an injury. Could have been anything. Sirota, Stovall, Tristan Smith. I mean, Tristan Smith was a guy at high school, right? Out of South Carolina. Mm-hmm. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a great point, and people, scouts should pay attention to that because it's really important. Anyways, really tough on the Yankees, right? It's like if you're the Phillies, if you're the Yankees, if you're Houston, and you've won a lot at the big league level, I challenge anybody to sit in that seat with the expectation of this is our first round pick. And make no mistake, people that aren't invested in this draft stuff, they just see it as a first round pick. The people that are invested in it clearly see the difference and the challenges when you're picking in the top 4 or 5 picks and you get to pick in the Condon group. Or you have to pick in this group down the board, and it doesn't matter which year it is. So what do? If you take a player that looks a little too conservative, you're playing it safe. If you take a player that looks a little bit risky, well, that's what you have to do if you want the upside. It's no different than taking Tyson Lewis, a high school shortstop out of Nebraska. Like, yeah. Oh, geez. So what the Yankees did right there is they took a player that certainly had some holes. We talked about it, but he wasn't just sleepwalking through 100 strikeouts in 60 innings. People beat up on Lance Lynn a little bit his junior year at Ole Miss when he had a battle through a bunch of injury, and he's turned out okay. So I think the Yankees, my guess is, and I wrote that in that little article, they probably got their pocket picked on what they really wanted. My guess is a hitter. And there's very few hitters that you really, really want at the back of the first round. And when they're gone, what do? They leaned right into their strength, and they swallowed some risk, but they also took the upside of Hess.
So the other thing, and being around all these scouts the last week on the East Coast, I thought for the vast majority, almost all of the teams, they stuck to their plan, and everybody kind of did a nice job. Hey, this was the class. We had to stretch it, right? There was more depth. There was less super famous guys. Even the Yankees, hey, the plan is clearly there. They go from Ben Hess to Bryce Cunningham, another SEC starter with upside. Really good. I mean, he looks like a workhorse, right? A lot of these guys. Thatcher Hurd, Gage Zeal was a nice pick from Miami, metrics guy from New York, Grayson Carter. If we're talking in 3 years that Grayson Carter's getting the start at Yankee Stadium, oh, who is this guy? Oh, he's 98 to 102. They taught him some little new pitch to get off barrels or sink, whatever that may be. Would you be shocked, like the arm talent of that, Seif, if Grayson Carter all of a sudden exploded?
I wouldn't be surprised if he exploded as like a high leverage reliever, 8th, 9th inning guy. No surprise whatsoever. to your points, just teach them a new grip, teach them a new pitch, some new movement, whatever it might be. But I have a really hard time seeing him being a 5-inning starter. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I just do. I'm just being honest. But certainly, it's not because he doesn't have the fastball or the body type. But there's just a little too much effort. There's not enough feel maybe there for 3 pitches or to, you know, the command there to battle through a lineup 2-3 times. But again, the Yankees knew what they were doing. They went big arm hunting for the most part, and they brought home some big arms.
And I think Griff Herring too was a great pick in the 6th round. He was a draft soph who might have had a chance to go back to LSU. He would have started on the weekend for the next year, and then you're looking at another SEC starter. So
they've been good at that. The Yankees, and listen, I know I work for the Yankees, and they have things that they're really good at and things that maybe they're not as good at, just like all teams. I was watching Spence pitch the other night. I wasn't with the Yankees anymore. I'm watching Oakland play.
Mm-hmm.
Spence, who the heck's this guy? There you go. 8th, 9th round, New York Yankees. They do it all the time, especially on day 2. So I want to bring something up so that we don't forget about it.
Bring it.
I want to talk about Dakota Jordan. And I'm going to talk about this cat from a scouting director's perspective. And Seif, I want your opinion on this. You and I are working together. We're working for the same team, we'll say, right? What the heck am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do with this kind of player? You've got a player that has clearly the tools are the tools. We know that, right? And we know that we can't find players that fail at that rate and then go on to have any kind of real success in the big leagues. So how do we handicap that? Because what I would say to you, now stay with me for a second, Shooter, chime in here. And this is very difficult for a director. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, hey guys, here's the deal. I can't find a player ever that's had those types of swing and miss problems and those types of strikeout rates, and then he's gone on to have success. And then somebody says something like, well, we could take him in the 4th round. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. The problem still exists. It doesn't matter if it's the 1st round or the 4th round or the 5th round or the 2nd round. The problem is still there that he has. The hurdle, he still has to overcome it. So what do we do? That's what I would like to know. I'd love your perspective on that, because it's a real dilemma that directors run into. Obviously, San Francisco felt like the risk reward was there in the 4th round. And I would just kind of raise my hand and go, yeah, but he's still going to enter professional baseball with something to overcome that nobody's overcome. So how do you deal with that if you're a director or you're whoever's making the pick?
Seif, go ahead.
Go on,
I
Seif.
100% agree with what DJ laid out. There's always that risk. It doesn't matter the 1st round or 20th round. But for me, as long as it's not different guys are different. But like for me, Vance Honeycutt would not have taken him with my 1st pick. Would have loved him with my 2nd pick, because your 1st pick is that's your aircraft carrier, as we alluded to earlier. You know, that's the franchise pick, right? Dakota Jordan, guys like that, they still have value though. That's the whole thing for me. Even though it's still gonna be a problem a year from now, 2 years from now, or whatever, unless you fix it, they still have value. And you can't find that type of athlete, that type of bat speed, that type of power. So to me, they have value. You just got to find the round you're comfortable picking that guy in for that dollar amount. So for me, I would have taken Dakota Jordan 3rd, 4th round. I think he went in the 4th, correct?
So it feels good. The Giants should feel really good about that.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, because it's like Jaron Kendall for me, going back a few years here. I was an area scout when Jaron Kendall was in high school. I think I was still an area scout when he was coming out of Vanderbilt, but I wasn't that area in Vanderbilt. I was that area in his Wisconsin high school. So out of Vanderbilt, still I saw the draft, you know, as a whole. I would not have taken Kendall in the 1st round, maybe not in the 2nd round, just because of the swing miss rate, but he still had value. He still had, you know, 3rd round, let's just say 3rd round, 4th round value. So that's where I would have been comfortable taking that guy for, you know, a 10th or a 5th of the money you're going to pay the guy in the 1st round. So
yeah.
Long-winded answer to your question. You know me by now. It's usually long-winded, but those guys for me, they still have value. Even like the guy like Grayson Carter throws 100 miles per hour. You kind of know where it's going. You kind of don't. The sliders below average. The changeups below average. That guy still has value. It's not 1st round value. It might not be 2nd round value, but there's still value there. So again, each guy's different. Great question, DJ. But I think no matter who the guy is, when they have those type of abilities that are at the 60, 70, 80 range on your tool scale, those guys have value. You just got to be comfortable. where are you taking him? So,
You brought up Grayson. I'm really glad you brought that up because I find myself feeling very different about the pitcher. So if the pitcher has the major hole, like a Grayson Carter or somebody else, Josh Stamont, for those that are paying attention from years ago, Royals took him in the second round. I almost fell out of my chair. It's like, what are you doing? This guy can't throw any strikes. And the problem was he had a really good, I say really good. He had a sound delivery. There wasn't anything in his arm action. He just couldn't do it. So I guess I looked at it and I said, I wouldn't do it in the second round because his chances of being a starter are they're zero. I hate speaking in absolutes, but the outcomes can be much more varied with the pitcher. When I run into Dakota Jordan, and I know I was a fan of Dakota Jordan, I was trying to keep him propped up in our rankings a little bit because of those tools. But then we watch this play out, and it plays out exactly like you thought it was going to play out, Seif, where he falls into that fourth round area, and his outcome is only hit or not hit. And if he doesn't hit, then that's it. There's no reliever. Maybe we hope that he has a good year in minor league baseball or he puts up some good numbers and they can extract some value from him, like you guys said. So
I'll be curious just to touch on the more specifically the Giants here, because I'm looking through the page that guys are coming in under slot for a fair amount in their back half there, what kind of money they save for Dakota Jordan. But if you walked away as the Giants, you had a first rounder at pick 13, and then you didn't pick again until the fourth round.
Mm-hmm.
So to push down a guy like Dakota Jordan, you walk away having James Tibbs, right? High floor hitter, left-handed, and you grab Dakota Jordan where, hey, there's some risk reward here. Again, it ties back to, I thought all the teams had a plan and did a really good job of execution. Each team, whereas some years where it's like, these guys are clowns. And saying that internally, this year, these guys all had a plan. Yankees were going after these pitchers. The Giants knew, hey, we don't pick again until the fourth. If we get a second, third round type talent, Dakota Jordan, high upside guy in the fourth, there's some value there. If we hit there, good job. But if not, hey, what were we going to take anyway? So
I agree with that. I saw that right away. I think we touched on that on our draft show. We talked, Shooter, about it was hard to pick holes, but because teams had a plan, and it was a little bit of a homogenous draft through the top 2 rounds after you got through that core group of guys. And to your point, that's a good one. They balance out James Tibbs with Dakota. I'm looking right at it. And then they go get this late comer, this Jacob Christian guy who went bananas at San Diego. So they take another guy that was a high performer, and it balances out Dakota Jordan's swing and miss a little bit. Saif, I brought up the Jacob Christian guy that went bananas at University of San Diego this year that San Francisco took. Nice pick. High-level performer. So
I'm bouncing around again. Like, I can't say enough about the plans. This was at the first year. I was like, these guys all really had good plans. They went in, and I think most departments were probably giddy because the depth was where they were going to attack. Right, the first round, we're going to try to slice up some stuff here. But talking to you, DJ, and I've said in the past, right? I am not sitting having to sign checks, answer to team presidents, to ownership, having to do that stuff, right? And I think most of the pundits and we were talking about the people who are they that are putting this stuff out. You can just say things, right? Hey, that's in the fake world. And I'm sure there's stuff that comes out of my mouth. Seif, don't smile here. That scouting directors are like, this guy's got no clue what actually happens in this seat, right, DJ? You got to go, hey, we're taking Thomas White and Noblemeyer doing this and that. But to have 2 guys and say, hey, just split up, grab 5 guys for $2 million each, right? Grab all those arms. Well, now this guy knows what that guy's doing. This agent does not want to take this. There are so many outside factors over this next. How many weeks is it? What's the signing deadline?
Well, it's July 31st.
Okay.
Yeah, 31st.
Jeez. I'm on to the next class already. But hey, you're going to get pressed there, and it's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, DJ, hopefully you went to Costco to get more Advil because you're going to be having to deal with these agents or a kid going back to campus who's trying to press his money up while the other one's doing the same thing over here, and you're trying to get one to sign first. I think that whole aspect is massively important, which is why even doing this show now without a full slate of what the guys signed for is a bit premature. We'll do some more stuff at the end of the summer. But how does that aspect, DJ, especially you as scouting director, where you're checking in daily? Do you have your area guy checking in with a high school kid who's threatening to go to campus? How does that relationship go?
So you drive the ball down the field and you're on the 2-yard line and
Mhm.
you feel great. Day 3 of the draft is over with. You feel great. And you're just hoping that the final 2 yards aren't too difficult. And you're hoping that your communication and your transparency, open communication and transparency with those agents in the moment when you were prepared, you're hoping that it allows you to push it across. If you took a substantial risk, I took a substantial risk in 2021. We pulled Khalil Watson without a deal.
Mm.
That was clearly, I don't think that's the case this year. That was a huge risk when I did that. And it really, really made the final 2 weeks extremely difficult. So, because there were other players that were hanging in the balance, not only did you have to sacrifice some picks in the draft in the moment, but it made it very, very difficult to get players signed. And that's the only year that happened. Most of the time, though, these directors are at the finish line. And to your point on Advil, they shouldn't need that much. They really shouldn't. You're trying to button up some college scholarship plan. Maybe you're trying to move some incentive bonus to one player or the other player, swing him another $2,500. But it shouldn't be that difficult at this point in the current setup. So.
A couple more things before we wrap up on this, and I'm really looking forward to the end of the summer. I know you guys have seen the USA collegiate team already. The national circuit is in full swing right now. DJ, you're gonna be checking some stuff out. I'm just getting back from some stuff, so we will have a full-on episode to preview the 2025 draft class that's coming in the future. We have done a way too early mock draft in the past. I think we're going to wait till the end of the summer just because we'll have so much more information on that. I do want to give a shout out though, because each year since I've come on, the Super 60 has been a marquee event for us at Prep Baseball. It really kicks off the true year in February. Used to be on Super Bowl Sunday. Now that gap week is actually, I think a lot of the scouts are happy about that. The fact that they get to go watch the Super Bowl, but an awesome event. Showcase for guys to see. I thought this year was incredibly important for all these guys. There were 19 kids taken from our Super 60 this year, including first rounder Cash Mayfield, Chris Lavonis, who will likely sign with the Brewers for a fair amount of money. Those two guys started their explosive springs with a breakout session at the Super 60. You talk Griff Burkholder, a host of others. But I think looking ahead to next year, what I want to talk about with this is that next year's class looks pretty similar to this year's. Just initial forecasting for the summer. I do think the Super 60 again will be a very important event. I think there will be some arms that pop. Seifert, one of the cool things. I think DJ, you were the one who sent the stat. Which state had the most prep high school kids taken? Which one?
Is that a trivia question?
It's a trivia question. Raise your hand. Go ahead, DJ.
The great state of Illinois.
Illinois had 10 high school prepsters taken.
Did you know that, Seif?
No, I had no idea. I'm shocked right now. I was going to go California, Florida, Texas, right?
Of course you were. What were the numbers, Shooter?
So Illinois had 10, California 9. I believe Texas was at 5.
Yes.
It just, I think it continues to push. And I'm completely getting on a soapbox and champion for area scouts right now at this entire show, but the game has grown. Travel ball has grown. Facilities have grown. The coaching has gotten better. The player development has gotten better. Those dudes in the Midwest, in the Northeast, in the Pacific Northwest, Canada, wherever this year, Idaho was bumping. That kid's going to be really good. The Dakotas had arms. There are guys to see all over. They are getting better. And I do think that some will rise later, right? Especially those high school arms. And for me, at this point, I'm biased with Illinois arms. Those dudes are going to pop. And it usually happens. I look forward each year to seeing which Super 60 kids are coming, whether it's a Blake Walters of a year ago who was touching 100 throughout the spring, to guys like Ethan Bagwell this year, who we were monitoring extremely closely throughout winter sessions, who had a big spring. I am already seeing a lot of those guys, whether it's Illinois, Ohio, especially Indiana in 2025, Pennsylvania. Shoot, you can go on. Now, There are also going to be some really good ones next year for you, DJ, in Georgia, Florida, that are coming out. So those states are reloading after this year. Texas, obviously, California, but the Super 60 this year, I can't say enough about how important that was for a baseline, for those important decision makers to get eyes on those guys, for guys to see Cash Mayfield up close and say, we're going to follow this. We're going to call our scouting director and get him into Oklahoma to see this kid. Whether it's Chris Lavonis, oh, shoot, the Jersey class looked okay. Wow, it really got better. This kid's electric. We need to see him nonstop. So shout out to all of our state directors for getting the right guys in there. They are boots on the ground, similar to those area scouts who have really good relationships with these kids, with the facilities, whoever it may be, and really evaluate well. So I just want to give a shout out to all of our scouts internally for doing a great job of getting the right kids to the Super 60, giving them the opportunity. That's all we can do is lead them to that water, go out and let it shine. And those kids did a great job. So that's my infomercial for the Super 60. There's my little ode, love song, whatever it may be. Looking forward to next year's. The All-American game had, I believe it was 7 guys. Watching their signing bonuses come in is very fun to watch, because a lot of those guys were late bloomers. You talk about Dason Hill, who is going to get paid a fair amount here, along with Britt Burkholder. I'm looking at $2.5 million from the Phillies in the second round. So awesome stuff from all of our scouts, boots on the ground. I will stop talking now, as everybody has already cut off the podcast, the watching the video here. Looking forward to 2025, fellas. I won't even say this is a full bow tie, because there'll be signing bonuses coming in and we'll be discussing all of that. But looking forward to what we have with 2025. I know, Seif, you have the collegiate rankings that have rolled out. So please check those out on d1baseball.com, as well as on the Draft HQ at prepbaseball.com. Any quick hot takes on the collegiate class of 2025? Seif, I started the show with one word. You could use more words, but what's your hot take on 2025 collegiates?
Hot take are the hitters like Bazana, Weatherholt, Condon, Cags, for me, haven't emerged yet. There are some good ones, don't get me wrong, but those 4 were kind of in their own class. I don't see 4 of them at this point in the 25 class, but I do see, like, Chase Burns really good. So is a guy named Tyler Bremer. So remember that name. Different types of guys, but just 60, 70 great stuff across the board. 3 or 4 pitches. It's phenomenal stuff. But I think overall the college pitching will be heavier in starters and heavier in depth. And the hitters, again, right now, I don't think it ends as good as what we just saw, but those guys will emerge. They just have not yet. So it's going to be at least as good as a college draft. 2025 will be at least as good as 2024.
And we kept DJ locked in the basement for most of the spring, where he was in his dungeon doing a lot of war room stuff. Well, now that the restraints are off, he's going to be out and about. He's already seen the collegiates, headed to East Coast Pro. The industry is just dying to know what DJ Svihlik thinks of this 2025 class. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say internally, and then for us to chat about it on here, DJ.
I'm going to come out swinging in 25. I will say this. I shot you that text. I said that the college guys won this year too. I'm looking through this draft, and every year we see it. There were 15 of the 20 college players taken in the first round this year. 15 were nowhere to be seen when they were in high school. Now, did scouts know about them? Did people know about them? Sure, they did. But there were 15 college players taken in this year's first round that just went into college as like, hey, he's a good player. And then he's a first rounder. Christian Moore. And so I'm not going to go through all the names. So kudos to college for continuing to develop these guys.
To your point, though, 1-1 was not a name coming out of high school, right? Bazan was down under. I don't think too many area guys had him on their short list. So.
Well, shame on the international departments then.
Yeah, shame on them.
That's for another story. Well, guys, this has been awesome. Really excited. Heading down to the future games, which will be a lot of fun, and be talking with you guys. DJ after East Coast Pro, Seif the college coverage. We'll be coming together at the end of this summer to really lay the foundation of what to expect in 2025. This has been the War Room, powered by Draft HQ and Prep Baseball. Until next time, we'll see you guys out there.